Have you ever watched your grandkids shuffle out the door in the morning, eyes barely open, dragging their feet, yawning like they haven't slept a wink? You pack their lunch, you pour the cereal, you send them off with a kiss, but deep down, you wonder, why do they always seem so tired? Maybe you've even asked them, and they just mumble something like, I dunno, just tired. Now, here's the thing, kids today are busier than ever. School, sports, screen time, and growing bodies that are working overtime. But one of the biggest reasons they're feeling drained might be happening right under our noses, at the breakfast table. You see, breakfast isn't just the first meal of the day. It sets the tone for everything that comes after. And when breakfast isn't done right, when it's rushed, skipped, or filled with the wrong kinds of foods, it can leave kids feeling foggy, cranky, and completely wiped out by mid-morning. So today, we're going to talk about something that really matters, especially for those of us who play a big role in our grandkids' or kids' lives. Whether you're a parent, grandparent, or just someone who loves a child and wants to see them thrive, this is for you. We're going to look at 5 common breakfast mistakes that could be zapping your child's energy and how to fix them with simple, practical changes. Let's start with one of the most common and sneakiest mistakes out there. And that's starting the day with too much sugar. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I don't give them candy for breakfast. But sugar can hide in a lot of foods we think of as normal breakfast options. That bowl of colorful cereal? Packed with sugar. Even some yogurts, granola bars, and fruit drinks that claim to be healthy are loaded with it. The tricky part is that these foods give kids a quick jolt of energy. They'll seem wide awake for a bit, but then comes the crash. And when that sugar high wears off, it's like their batteries drain all at once. I remember one morning my grandson came over, all excited to show me a school project. He had one of those toaster pastries on the way to school. You know the kind, sweet icing, bright colors, and a filling that's more sugar than fruit. He was bouncing off the walls at first, talking a mile a minute. But by 10 a.m., the teacher called to say he couldn't focus, kept yawning, and looked ready to nap right at his desk. Instead of those sugary starts, think about swapping in a little balance. Try something like a bowl of oatmeal with some berries and a sprinkle of cinnamon. Or whole grain toast with almond butter and sliced banana. Even eggs with a little cheese and a piece of fruit can do wonders. It doesn't have to be fancy, just real food with a little protein, fiber, and healthy fat to keep them full and focused. Now let's talk about another mistake that's become way too common these days, skipping breakfast altogether. You'd be surprised how many kids are heading off to school with nothing in their stomachs except maybe a sip of juice. Sometimes it's because they're in a rush, other times they just say they're not hungry. But skipping breakfast doesn't just make them hungrier later, it affects how they think, how they behave, and even how well they do in class. And here's something you may not know, when kids skip breakfast, their blood sugar stays low, and that means their brain doesn't get the fuel it needs. It's kind of like trying to drive a car with no gas. You might coast for a bit, but sooner or later, everything sputters out. Now, I get it, mornings can be hectic. Everyone's trying to get dressed, find their shoes, grab their backpacks. But even something quick like a slice of whole grain toast with peanut butter, or a small smoothie with some fruit and plain yogurt, can make a huge difference. If your grandkids stay with you sometimes, or if you're helping out with the morning routine, try prepping a few things the night before. A hard-boiled egg, a small container of berries, or even some overnight oats in the fridge can be lifesavers on busy mornings. There's also something special about sitting down, even if just for a few minutes, and sharing that time together. It sends the message that food is fuel, and mornings matter. Plus, it gives you a little moment of connection, which can be just as nourishing as the meal itself. Another thing that often gets overlooked is not including enough protein in the morning. It's easy to focus on toast, cereal, or waffles, but those are mostly carbs. Now, there's nothing wrong with carbohydrates, they give quick energy. But without protein to balance things out, that energy doesn't last. The result? They get hungry again fast, feel tired, and start getting cranky before lunchtime hits. Protein helps keep blood sugar steady, and it gives their brains the building blocks they need to stay sharp and alert. A few easy ways to add protein: a boiled egg, a small handful of nuts, a bit of Greek yogurt, or even a slice of turkey or cheese wrapped up with some fruit. These things aren't complicated, and most kids will eat them without a fuss if you present it in a fun, simple way. Sometimes I'll make what I call a breakfast buddy plate. I just put out a few little things, some apple slices, a bit of cheese, a hard-boiled egg, and maybe a small piece of whole grain muffin. Kids love variety, and when they feel like they have a choice, they're more likely to eat. Now that we've looked at how sugar, skipping breakfast, and a lack of protein can all play a role in how tired and sluggish kids feel, it really comes down to giving their bodies what they need, not just what's quick or easy. These little changes, just a few adjustments here and there, can have a huge impact on their energy, mood, and even how much they enjoy the day ahead. Let's keep this momentum going. Because once you start noticing the difference a better breakfast can make, you'll wonder why we ever settled for less. And speaking of settling, let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention, but it's something many of us grew up hearing, and maybe even still believe today. It's the idea that a glass of fruit juice is a healthy way to start the day. Now, I'm not here to ruin orange juice forever. There's nothing wrong with a little natural sweetness once in a while, but here's the truth: most fruit juices, even the ones labeled 100% juice, are packed with sugar and very low in fiber. It's a bit like drinking a soda and expecting it to keep you full. The sugar hits fast, the energy spikes, and then, crash. Back to being tired, hungry, and unfocused. What makes it tricky is that juice sounds healthy. It has fruit on the label, sometimes even says no added sugar. But when you remove the fiber, the part of the fruit that slows down digestion and keeps you full, you are left with a drink that sends blood sugar on a roller coaster. And kids are especially sensitive to that ride. They may seem fine at first, but by the time they're sitting in math class, their energy has plummeted. Instead, think about offering the real thing. A small apple, a few slices of orange, or even a handful of berries. Whole fruit gives them natural sweetness plus the fiber that helps everything digest more steadily. And if they really love their morning juice, try watering it down, half juice, half water. It still tastes sweet, but it's easier on their system. I used to do that with my granddaughter. She was obsessed with grape juice. Every morning, she'd ask for it like it was part of the ritual. So I started mixing in a little water, slowly at first, just a splash. Over time, she didn't even notice the difference. And I noticed she wasn't having those mid-morning slumps anymore. It's funny how those tiny tweaks can make such a big impact. And it doesn't take a complete kitchen overhaul. Just paying attention, noticing patterns, and being willing to experiment a little. Now let's talk about something a bit deeper, not just what we feed our kids in the morning, but how they're eating. You might not think of this as a mistake, but rushing through breakfast, or letting kids eat while glued to a screen, can actually mess with their energy and mood more than we realize. Have you ever noticed how different it feels to eat when you're calm, seated, and enjoying the food, compared to when you're grabbing bites in the car or watching the news? Our bodies, and our kids' bodies, digest food better when they're relaxed. When kids eat while distracted, they're less likely to notice when they're full, and more likely to crave snacks later, even if they just ate. I remember mornings when my daughter was little, and we'd be running around trying to get out the door. She'd be chewing toast while pulling on her shoes, watching cartoons, and trying to remember her spelling words all at once. And by the time we got to school, she was grumpy and sluggish. It wasn't just what she ate, it was the chaos around how she ate. So if you can, create a few minutes of calm. Turn off the TV. Put away the phones. Even 5 or 10 minutes of sitting at the table, talking about the day ahead, can make breakfast feel more like fuel and less like a pit stop. It sets a rhythm, not just for digestion, but for the whole day. One trick that helped in our house was a simple breakfast playlist. I'd put on a little soft music in the background, something upbeat but gentle, and suddenly, the whole mood changed. It became our little morning ritual. Not only did it help the kids eat better, it gave all of us a moment of peace before diving into the day. And you know, routines like that, they don't just help the kids. They help us, too. As grandparents, we're often the quiet force behind the scenes. We set the tone, we model behavior, even when we don't think they're watching. But they are watching. They see how we care, how we move through the morning, how we talk about food and health and energy. By making these small shifts, less sugar, more protein, real fruit instead of juice, and a calm, connected breakfast, we're giving them something so much more than just a meal. We're giving them the tools to feel better, focus better, and walk out the door each morning ready to face the day. And the best part? It's never too late to start. Whether you're the one preparing breakfast every morning, or you just see the kids on weekends, or even if you're passing this advice along to your own grown children, it all matters. These changes don't need to be perfect. They just need to be thoughtful. Sometimes, the biggest difference we can make in a child's life is not in grand gestures, but in those small, everyday things. Like the way we pour their cereal, or take the time to slice up some strawberries, or say, "Sit down with me for just a minute, let's enjoy this together." That's where the magic happens. That's where tired turns into energized, and ordinary mornings turn into something memorable. Let's keep going. Because those moments, those little choices we make in the kitchen each morning, they really do add up over time. And when we see our kids and grandkids walking a little taller, smiling a little more, or simply having an easier time getting through their day, we know we're doing something right. Now, let's talk about one more mistake that's often overlooked, but can really drain a child's energy fast, and that's giving them too many refined carbs without enough balance. It sounds similar to the sugar issue we talked about earlier, but this goes beyond the sweet stuff. Refined carbs are things like white bread, pancakes made from processed mixes, sugary cereals, toaster waffles, foods that are stripped of their natural fiber and nutrients. They break down quickly in the body, just like sugar, and give a quick burst of energy that fades fast. What's missing is the fiber, the healthy fats, and the protein that helps slow down digestion and give kids that steady, lasting fuel they need. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying pancakes or toast need to disappear forever. There's a place for all kinds of food. But if breakfast is only made of refined carbs, kids are going to feel that energy crash by mid-morning. The key is to balance it out. If your little one loves pancakes, try making them with whole wheat flour or adding mashed banana and a bit of ground flaxseed to the batter. Or serve them with a side of scrambled eggs or a little Greek yogurt so there's some protein to keep their energy steady. Even spreading a bit of nut butter on a piece of whole grain toast can make a big difference. You're not taking away the foods they love, you're just giving them the support they need to feel good afterward. I had a friend who used to say, "My grandson only eats toast in the morning, it's all he'll touch." So I suggested she try switching to a whole grain bread, and instead of just butter, add a little almond butter and a few slices of banana. She gave it a shot, and wouldn't you know it, he didn't even complain. A week later she told me, he's not yawning at 9 a.m. anymore. Small changes. Big impact. It's easy to fall into the routine of what's fast and familiar, especially on busy mornings. But if we slow down just enough to think, is this going to give them the energy to last through the day? We can start to make smarter choices without turning breakfast into a big ordeal. And let me tell you something from the heart, the fact that you're even thinking about this, caring enough to learn, to adjust, to try new things, that means more than you know. You're not just feeding your kids or grandkids, you're showing them love. You're giving them a strong start to their day, and that has ripple effects far beyond the breakfast table. Let's take a moment to bring it all together. Because we've talked about a lot, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by too many suggestions. But remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about little, thoughtful steps that add up over time. We talked about how too much sugar in the morning can give kids a short-lived burst of energy, followed by a crash that leaves them more tired than before. We looked at how skipping breakfast entirely, or just grabbing a sugary drink, can mess with focus and mood. We saw how protein is the secret weapon that helps keep their blood sugar steady and their brains sharp. We looked at the hidden sugar in fruit juices and how real, whole fruit is almost always the better choice. And we just finished talking about refined carbs, and how adding a bit of balance can help kids stay full, focused, and feeling good. These aren't big, complicated fixes. You don't need to be a gourmet chef. You don't even need to spend more time, just shift your focus. Choose the eggs instead of the sugary cereal. Add a handful of fruit, a spoonful of nut butter, a bit of yogurt. Try to sit down for 5 peaceful minutes instead of rushing out the door with food in hand. And maybe most importantly, make breakfast something kids look forward to. It doesn't have to be a big production. A special plate, a funny napkin, a little game like guess what's in the smoothie today, these things can turn breakfast into a moment of joy instead of just another task. I promise you, these small efforts won't go unnoticed. Kids might not always say thank you or even realize why they feel better, but they will feel it. They'll have more energy, more patience, more focus. And they'll carry those healthy habits with them as they grow. So whether you're preparing breakfast every morning, or just a few times a week, or even just offering a bit of guidance to your adult kids as they feed their little ones, know that you're making a difference. A real, lasting one. And if you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you. You're the kind of person who goes the extra mile for the people you love. You're curious, thoughtful, and willing to try something new to help the next generation thrive. That's powerful. That's love in action. If you found this helpful, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's a breakfast trick that's worked for you, or a favorite recipe your grandkids can't get enough of. Share it in the comments. You never know who else you might help just by telling your story. And if you want more tips like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got so much more to talk about, because when it comes to health, energy, and feeling our best, there's always something we can do. So here's to starting the day strong. To full bellies, focused minds, and feeling good from the inside out. Here's to living your best life at any age.